everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, I am beyond thrilled to introduce a very special guest who is truly a powerhouse of passion, resilience, and transformation. She is the city born, country dwelling creative genius behind KP Kreative, the voice and visibility catalyst for paradigm shifters, healers, helpers, rebels, and revolutionaries. Kylie Patchett has spent over 25 years in the health, well-being, and scientific fields, and now helps healers and change makers show up in the world in a more magnetic and powerful way using the art of storytelling. She is a woman who's not afraid to lead with heart and soul. So without further ado, let's dive into today's conversation with the one and only Kylie. Welcome to the show, gorgeous one.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're so welcome. I am so excited to have you join me because we've worked together. I've been in a few of your bits and pieces that you offer and a lot around the
Yes.
storytelling side of things. So I'd really
Mhm.
like for us to kick things off with that. Can you I'd really like to better understand how that passion around storytelling came about. Like what happened exactly?
Yeah, it's I always talk about the golden thread that runs through people's lives, and they're like, "How are you talking about storytelling, which on the surface is copywriting, but it isn't, but we'll go there in a second.
Yeah.
But you started your career as a forensic biologist, and I'm like, actually, it's the same skill set. So, I am neurosparkly, quite loud and proud neurosparkly. And I think one of the things that my brain has always done beautifully and naturally is pattern recognition. And so if you think about like when I was a forensic biologist, I would be given a case file which is with a story in it, like this is witness accounts or whatever. And you would be given some evidence, and your job was to kind of figure out what did and didn't match and, test the evidence for, DNA evidence. That was what I used to do. And then go and, form a hypothesis, a theory, prove it, disprove it, and then take your findings to court. And then when I left that end of things, because I got very bored of being in a lab coat by myself in a lab, like was a raging extrovert. I wouldn't actually say that I am a raging extrovert anymore. I think I was probably masked up very much then. But when I left there, I was really pulled into always in places and spaces where I was helping people either communicate or capture a message and simplify it. And to me, storytelling has always been the way to do that because, like, I've just exactly done that, right? So I have just told a little tiny mini story about being, in a lab by myself, and this is what I used to do. And so people are painting a picture in their head. I'm putting myself in this. Oh, yeah. So, and if you've had any experience that's kind of similar, there's some relational thing that happens in our brain. So much more than if we're just saying these are the facts and, like dry sort of, I don't know, like dry, cold facts versus the warmth and the ability to connect through storytelling. And so I found myself in all different like training, education, marketing, communication, all the different ways of communicating things. And what I've always wanted to do is pull the golden thread of the story behind a brand or behind an entrepreneur and pull that into the light, because there is like thousands and thousands of people that do very similar things to us, but there is not one other human on the planet, and never will be, which is the brilliant thing, that has the same unique combination of lived experience and skills and perspectives and, you know pain that they've alchemized into power. And it's that is magnetic to your ideal client, because it's the way that you shine your message out in the world that either is wildly irresistible or repelling to people. And that's what we actually want it to be. Like if
Yeah.
you're vanilla, there's a problem. That's a very, very long answer. But yeah, I've always just found myself in storytelling. And it's very funny how when I came across human design, one of my like incarnation cross gates is the storyteller. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. So,
Absolutely. I mean, you're nailing that aspect of your human design profile for sure. But I mean, it is. I love the concept about the golden thread, and I feel like from having worked with you, that part is
Mhm.
something that I think I was the most challenged by because had originally felt like I was explaining how everything matched. I felt like I was sharing deeper parts of myself, but
Yeah.
working through your program, I felt myself learn how to deepen that storytelling and that connection, and not be afraid
Yeah.
to show people how it all links,
No.
and to help them
Yeah.
picture and take them through that journey. And I'm a full chatterbox, so you'd think that that would come easily, but it actually doesn't. There is an art, and it takes a little bit of practice, but it also
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
interested in your perspective about this. Like, I feel like it's actually beyond that, because there is the part where you have to allow yourself to go deeper within, and
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people, depending on where they're at, if they haven't done much spiritual work, I feel like they're not really able to do that. And for me, I'd already done more than 15 years of work in that space, learning to deepen and deepen, and I
Yeah.
still felt after initially starting the work with you, I felt like I was still playing so superficially, which kind of came as a shock to me. So I'm interested in your
Yeah.
perspective. Like, is that something that you see a lot with the people that
Yeah.
you're working with and you're leading?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that there is two main reasons behind this. First of all, the concept of the golden thread is centered around the unique blueprint and the special, like I always say, like the unicorn or the youiest version of you, which I know is just a Kylieism, but like the golden thread is what pulls you towards what is your legacy work in the world. And sometimes stories that showcase the golden thread and reveal that why and the depth are difficult because people aren't yet doing their legacy work. So that's kind of one end of things where they're kind of using their very logical, chin up kind of perspective of like, this is the work that makes sense to me. This is the work that, has been easy for me to do. It's safe work. It's like the bread and butter stuff that I do because it's easy and it makes money and all of those things. So that's kind of one surface. And I'm putting my hand up for that 100% because even as recently as the second half of last year, I was still doing done for you copywriting and brand storytelling for people because it was safe,
Yeah.
because it was something that was like easy peasy for me to do. But was it my legacy work? No, because it was only one tiny little bit of my genius zone, and really the magic in my business has unfolded spectacularly and very rapidly from the time when I actually allowed my full self to be seen.
Yeah.
So not just you can hire me for me to do XYZ for you. And yes, I'm brilliant at copywriting. But what I realized was I was out of alignment because I was giving a woman, a healer or a helper, a fish and saying, here's your copy. But I wasn't teaching her the number one skill, which is actually being able to capture and communicate what you do in the world. And I also was writing this beautiful magnetic copy, but with some of my clients, I was really clear that they had not done this voice and visibility healing work underneath the surface. And so we were just slap on top beautiful copywriting and a beautiful brand. But if the underneath is saying it's not safe for me to be seen and recognized as a thought leader, I'm setting them up to fail. So I'm part of the problem. So that was like, that was a huge moment for me where I was like, shit, okay. So that's the number one is, are you truly doing your legacy work in bringing all your genius to the table? So that's the first thing that kind of block people with the storytelling thing. But I think the second thing is there's still many parts of us, particularly as women, particularly as people who identify as doing healing and helping and transformation work, that are afraid to be seen still. Like we are afraid to, like, we might be okay to show the strategy part of what we do, but the woo underneath it feels too scary or whatever. And I feel like my call to awareness and the invitation I always give people is like no one's going to give you the thought leader badge. There's no such thing. There's no one that's just going to post it to you in the post. Like you actually need to claim it for yourself and then step into your full power as the fullness of what you can bring to the world. And that's scary, right?
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
scary to do that. And unless you have, and like you said, like so many of us have done so much spiritual work, and yet we still don't feel truly safe to show the depth of who we are. And that's learned through, it could be ancestral, it could be generational. You well know, like, there's
Yeah.
lots and lots of stuff in the field that can make this difficult. And even yesterday, like, I have this beautiful mastermind circle called Potent, and we were talking about like where are the places and spaces that you feel truly safe to be your full self. And it's really interesting when you start asking that, because sometimes even in our personal life, we're still not being the fullness of who we are. And then we expect ourselves to go out there and like be fully vulnerable in business. Like that is ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
So I don't know whether I've actually answered your question, but I think that they're the two things that I see all the time, like that not fully owning everything, but then even if we are owning everything, not feeling safe to actually be seen as the fullness of who we are.
You did answer my question. And while we're on that, I wanted to just um, go back over the part around there are generational things, there are some current things that stop us from being visible. And
Yep.
it's all well and good having someone write all that copy for you, but if you're not the embodiment of it, you can't talk to it. So, whilst all of the
Exactly.
external things, like you can have this beautiful website and pay the money to get all of that done, but if you can't then talk to what is on your website in the exact
Mm-hmm.
same way, in your language, in your words, in your energy, in
Yep.
your potency, when you meet somebody and then they have a look at your website, or the other way around, they've seen your website and then come to talk to you, there is a disconnect, isn't there? And
Yep.
we've spoken about that before, where it breaks the trust, and that makes it hard for people to connect with you because they don't understand what has happened. And one feels
Mm-mm.
like you're putting on a costume, you're pretending. But even though
Mm-hmm.
it's the closest version to you because you've had someone see you, because you're not doing
Yes.
that, it's kind of like you're acting as like
Yes.
another version of you, but not the
Yep.
full, not fully anchored in. And so, in one of the programs that we've worked on, which you've seen, you there's a part of that program where you have to have a look to see which archetypes. I think there's five, isn't there? Five?
Seven. Yeah.
Seven different
Yep. Yep.
archetypes. And
Yeah.
um that was really challenging because I found that I was two out of the seven.
Yep. Yep.
That I had two that were really playing out, and one was definitely the
Mm-hmm.
perfectionist, and I can't remember the other
Yep.
one now, but that was like the predominant one. But I had to go through
Mm-hmm.
each of those and write down like how many of those statements underneath those archetypes are related to. That's because at first I was like, it's all of these, but it wasn't
Yeah.
all of those. There might have been some, do you know, like, and then I was like, oh
Yeah.
no, there's too many.
Yeah.
Like
It's
I was like, oh shit, I'm so far behind. There's like so many things that are keeping me blocked from being seen, and it was a
mm-hmm.
real eye
Yeah.
opener. So I ended up putting like scores next to each archetype to work out, okay, really, just like what is the top two, and so
Yep.
that helped me lean in and sort of focus where I needed to go. I should go back in there now that we've done all of that work and do another
Yeah.
reevaluate, like and
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
reevaluate like where some opportunities still exist. But
Yeah.
I wanted to know from your perspective, do you see that as like a common thing with clients that you work with and the people who participate in
Yeah.
your offers and so forth? Like that is something that you're noticing, like they don't know that they're not embodied.
Oh, 100%. Even me, like I was just saying to a friend this morning, I was voice noting her, and I'm like, because I've just gone away for 5 days, I've come home, but my husband's still away, and it like I just don't feel like I'm quite grounded into my like normal routine and space, and I'm moving my office and all sorts of things, and I'm like, I don't know, there's a part of me, and I find like internal family systems and the concept of us having parts that are all for our highest good, but often, can be running interference and, creating a bit of self sabotage to try and keep us safe. And I was saying to her, I can't even get to the truth of like, usually I can really anchor into that full authentic self and be like, okay, everything else is just this distraction pattern. And I feel like sometimes we are so blended with the parts of us that think that we are being our authentic self, but actually it's a part of us that's like a manager part, which is, and I don't know, like for those who don't know IFS, it's not really that you need to understand the IFS system overall to understand what I'm saying. It's more like a part that exists to try and protect you from feeling the pain that that feels too much, too vulnerable. And so it could be something as simple as, I don't know, you stood up in front of the class when you were in grade 2 and you peed your pants or something, and then that created this, awful, like it's not safe to be seen, it's not, I'm awful, disgusting, whatever. And that part, the system creates this manager part that tries to prevent us feeling the pain. And sometimes what I find is that we can get so identified with that manager part. And we were talking about this in Potent yesterday. It's like a self-monitoring. So you're going out in the marketplace and you start talking about what you're doing. And rather than being in the fullness of your authentic self, you're actually speaking, but you've got this part of you actually almost like with a clipboard going, what, oh, hang on, hang on. We're going off the script here. This is not safe. And yeah, I find that it can take some pulling and, like I always say, gentle self-inquiry. Like I don't believe that we need to provoke ourselves into this, nervous system collapse state where nothing feels possible. Like that's ridiculous. But the gentle tending and the real like self-honesty and self-mastery. I used to say in one of my old programs years ago, like self-mastery is the only true path to freedom. And I feel very much like that is coming through very strongly for me because, we all, every single one of us, doesn't matter how successful people, appear or are, have these parts that are trying to keep us, safe and to, our brain's job is to protect us from things that we fear. And so I feel like when you start doing this voice and visibility stuff, we can feel like we're being authentic. And yet, if we can gently, and this is what I do with the combination of the storytelling strategy, but also this energetic capacity building thread that I've, woven in, is expanding our capacity to hold the discomfort of being seen in a way that actually builds self-trust. And it's a gentle expansion and it's over time. But also then as we're doing that, inviting people to look at their own website and to kind of try and do it through the eyes of the objective observer and just be like, can I feel any dissonance here? Like, does this actually feel true to me? And if we can just gently calm the manager part down and allow it to just, like I always say, I call my lizard brain Brian. I'm like, Brian, there's a beanbag over there. If you just pop over there, I'll give you some popcorn. You can have a snack, put your feet up. You're not needed here. My authentic self, my wild woman is running the show. Thank you for your service. You must be exhausted. Calm the fuck down. Oh, sorry. Am I allowed to swear? I'm so
Of
sorry.
course, I swear all the
Well,
time.
good.
I think I've
Okay.
already
Because I'm
sworn.
like,
I think I've already sworn on this podcast already. Anyway, so
excellent. Very good. Well, my podcast has the word fuck in it. So,
yeah,
but yeah, I think there is a lot of us that think we're being authentic, but we're doing authenticity inside of a box.
yeah,
And the box is what we believe is the right way to do business. And I'm like, if you're trying to do business the right way, you're still inside the matrix. You may as well go back to a corporate career or somewhere where someone is punching your, you know, timesheet each day because you're not actually giving yourself freedom if you're trying to do it someone else's way. And
yeah,
I can guarantee if you're trying to do it someone else's way, you're going to end up creating something that's not sustainable for you. So,
totally.
yeah. Mm,
And I mean, that
mm,
was what you're describing was me, except that the irony and the ridiculousness is what I had created and what was on my website and what I was talking to
yeah.
was um out there, was new. I'm talking about,
Yes.
new paradigms for leadership and so forth. But
Yes.
whilst all of that language was on there, there was no me in the depth there. And that has been
Mm,
even I was talking to my partner, even we've been talking about the podcast, and he's listened to all of the podcasts from beginning to end, and
Yeah.
he's noticed the change since our work,
Hmm.
right? He's noticed the deepening, the self-trust that's built. But even though
Mm.
I was talking a lot around this new vision and bringing something new, it wasn't enough. There wasn't enough of me there. So even if you are doing something really out of the box, you're not exempt
Yeah.
from the deepening. You're not exempt from that deeper
Mm-mm.
embodiment, and it does show, like you were saying, like there's a part of you that wants to protect. So you are managing the process. And as entrepreneurs who have come from the corporate background, I feel like we know how to do that so well. We know how
We
to coach
do. We're so
ourselves
good at
like
it.
clinically through the process. Okay, now we're going to write the about page and it needs to look like this. And isn't that very pretty? But it's like, yeah, but
Yep.
where's how much of you, even though it's incredibly hard to do to write your own copy. It is. So like we'll
Yeah.
give ourselves some grace, absolutely. But
A hundred
then
percent.
yeah, but then to deepen it is a whole other soul discovery that for me, absolutely, I wasn't expecting. I didn't say this when you interviewed me on your podcast, but
Yeah.
I'll say it here because I've done quite a lot of reflecting about it. But when I joined, I was like, I just need the answers. I need the answers to what to write on the website to make it deeper, right? I came
Yep.
in
Yep.
with that manager mindset. I don't have a nickname for that version of me. I should get one. I like yours.
Oh,
Um,
do you know what she looks like though? Like as you're talking about it, like for anyone who's listening, like this manager part, and not everyone's visual, but
yeah,
because I'm visual,
yeah.
like mine looks like a 1960s severe beehive, like perfectly put together. But she's got an Air Force uniform on and she's literally carrying a checklist. Like she is so tightly buttoned up and fucking polished. And I'm like, you have helped me get through so much in my life, but I do not need your help anymore. Anyway, sorry to interrupt,
No,
but if you're a visual person, like,
yeah, yeah. I should do that I'll do that in my meditation because I don't know what she looks like, but I know her energy and I know
mm-hmm.
I have to really consciously encourage her to let go. And I've been
Yeah.
through quite a lot of change in the last 12 months. That doesn't seem to be
Mm-hmm.
stopping. But I feel like I have to have these private conversations with her, the internal part of me with
Yeah.
her to just go, listen,
Mm-hmm.
we're not in any danger. Everything is fine. We're going to work it out. Just I need you to just calm down. But it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to keep managing that side of things. And I feel like a lot of people don't
100%.
understand in order to really be in your full expression and to be seen, to be in the embodiment, this is like an
Mm-hmm.
ongoing thing that I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't feel like mine's ever really going to go away. Do you think yours is?
Oh no.
No,
No,
yeah.
I think it's getting easier because there's a thing in parts work like when IFS like it the way that IFS explains being in your authenticity and like when you were talking about, coming into this depth of the evolution of your work, like you used the word once Viking and you were like, I feel like there's this and when I feel Maryanne in her Viking, truth, there's this like proud like super grounded and just owning. I've got goosebumps all over the back half of my body, like
Yeah.
just owning your power, right? Like there's this such a, mm, yeah, like a visceral strength that feels like it. And if you can really anchor like somatically or visually, like however your system works, like I feel things in my body, but I also see them. But then you can more easily and I think more quickly identify when you're blending with that part, because sometimes that part feels
Definitely.
like us, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like shit is going sideways. I need to tighten things up and control things, and I need to do my to-do list, and I'm not going to be safe. Like it's a real, like graspy, desperate feeling, right? And I've definitely had a bit of a period in the last couple of weeks where I made a decision that ended up being a very not good decision for my business. And this part has been super active because she's like, see, you fucked up, like, like a
Yeah.
real recrimination. But I feel like I don't think it ever goes away, but I think our ability to really sense when we're blending with a part that's trying to protect versus in that, like, Maryanne and her Viking self does not have any manager energy.
Yeah.
Like that is like, that, and they say in IFS, like the eights is like calm, curious, compassionate, can never remember all of these, creative, clear, curious, like it just like, and we've all had experiences of being in that energy. They might be fleeting,
Yeah.
but the more that we can anchor into that state of us, that authentic self, and understand that that is the truth of who we are, and that's the part of us that understands how to unfurl our legacy work.
Yeah.
And this manager part is just trying to keep us safe, and they're all, every single part that we have is here for our highest good, at least in their perception, but they may need to retire, which is why Brian has a beanbag over here with a box of freaking popcorn. And, like, and I can tell, like, and the other thing that I would really love to bring into this conversation is don't put yourself in harm's way. So if you understand, part of this self-mastery picture is when X happens, that's when my manager part comes online, and I'm really, really like, I can't separate myself. I can't understand, and I go on this wild ride of like protection. And then like a couple of days later, you might snap out of it and be like, what the heck was I like? Wow, I was really outside of myself. But like, don't put yourself in harm's way. Like, if you know what gets you into that activated state, yes, work on tending to the parts of the system that need to, love and be tended to and loved, and, yeah, tended to is what I want to say. But also, like, if you know a particular person keeps crossing your boundaries and that activates something in you, like, self honor yourself by not going there. Like,
Yeah.
we are in charge here. Like, we are, adult women. We can choose our environment and choose what we digest in the media and social media, particularly.
Totally.
So, like, stop putting yourself in harm's way,
Yes. And sometimes it's not other
Mm.
people. Sometimes it's just from being tired. We were talking about human design
Yes.
before. I'm a
Oh my God,
projector.
yes.
When I get too tired and I'm overworking, that manager part of me loves to step in and go, right, now we're
Yeah.
taking full control. We must,
Yes.
and
Push, push, push.
it's like you have to push. You can't rest. You're not allowed to sleep in, heaven forbid. You must. The house needs to be
Yep.
perfect. You need to eat perfectly. You
Yep.
need to have all the things
Mm-hmm.
and do all the things. And it feels like a lot, and it's easy for me that part makes it easy for me to slip into. So I feel like I've got like uh,
Yes.
a very clear understanding about really when it happens. But when I'm not in that space, everything feels easier, and that's when I try to. I've sort of coached myself to not do creative things when I'm in manager mode,
Mm.
because that is
Yes.
also something that really came through when I was working with you on the scene side of things, because
Mhm.
I didn't realize how significantly that was impacting the work that I was doing and the energy that was
Yep.
attached to it, and then I'd have to redo it
Yeah.
anyway. So now
Exactly.
I actually just pause. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. I love that you brought this into, because to me, human design, I have a raging desire. There's something extremely alive in me to learn human design at a depth that I can fold in that into the mix of things that I work with, because really my work centers around, like, when you say voice and visibility catalyst, like, what the hell does that mean? Who knows? I could change it tomorrow. Like, but really what I'm saying is helping paradigm shifters to resource the parts of themselves that are not comfortable being seen, heard, and recognized as thought leaders. Because by definition, as you spoke to before, when we are paradigm shifting, we are going first, and we are pioneering, and we're saying stuff that's never been said. We're putting things together that have never been seen before, and we are going to upset the systems of oppression by definition, because
Yeah.
we are here to create new pathways. And I call us the future humans. Like, I really truly believe anyone drawn to shifting paradigms, like doing the work that you do, folding in karmic consciousness into corporate, like that, like that. But as we talked about in our interview, you're going first. And so if you're not resourcing yourself, and to resource yourself well, you need to understand human design, because you have received as a projector a lot of conditioning that says you need to act like a generator,
Yep.
which is absolutely where that manager part, like you would have been taught in the school system, in your family, probably in the corporate, you must push, you must push, you must push, you must push. But the truth of who you are as a projector is you must be so nourished and rested so that when your genius is seen and you're invited to share, you can be this, like I'm back in that Viking energy, like this font of like inspiration and visionary leadership. But you can't access it if you're burning yourself out as a pseudo generator. So
Yep.
you're actually cutting yourself off from your life force doing that. And so I'm really drawn to this human design piece because I am a generator, but I've made a new connection and friendship with someone who's a 3-5 like me, but a 3-5 projector. And we've been having this beautiful conversation about how it feels for her versus how it feels for me when in different situations. And the other thing that I didn't realize, like, because I think 70% of the world are generators. So, most of the kind of people on the planet are the generators. But we also need to understand as generators that we have, I feel like generators, um, because we have this power source, we can work and work and work and work. But if we're not working on the things that satisfy us and give us joy, we're actually sucking ourselves dry
Yep.
and we're really, really depleting our genius. And so understanding human design and being able to like really bring, when I talk about this voice and visibility catalyst things, it's really about deconditioning from the rules, like
Yep.
any rules, anyone else's rules, because we are here. Like, I'm going to go back to my original genetics degree. Can we just all like close your eyes and actually get really clear to the fact that your individual genetic combination will never happen again? Like literally will never happen again, has never happened before.
Mm.
We are unique as all of those snowflakes. Every single one is completely different in its structure. And yet we live inside of systems and boxes that try and teach us that there's a right way and a wrong way. And that's where the clipboard comes in, right? It's like, I have to tick it off, I have to tick it off. But what if we actually just settled into just being our full selves? Like I'm getting high on my own message here. Like how magical would the world be? We
Yeah.
wouldn't end up with, one of the biggest things that I feel really called to talk about at the moment is these systems of oppression that are all interlocking. And it's the capitalism, it's the patriarchy, it's misogyny, it's the anti-aging industry, it's the beauty industry that says you have to be a particular way to be acceptable. It's all of the isms, like the racism, gender bias, like I used to work in disability services, like the shit that goes on in any system that says you have more power than I have.
Yep.
That's the stuff that us paradigm shifters are here to overturn.
Yeah.
But we cannot do it if we are still trying to play by the rules, which is why human design and this deconditioning energy work that I've brought in finally, like I'm out of the closet, out of the closet as a witch, because we can't do it by ourselves. It has
No.
to be collective, and we will never be able to. We cannot do it by fighting against the current system. We have to invite to new pathways. That is the only way that this will ever change.
I mean, that's
And
so
now I will get off
powerful.
my
Yeah.
soapbox.
No, no, that's so powerful though. I mean, that feels like you just want to pause with that. Like, and I even recommend whoever's listening to pause and just go back over that question. Like, really just take in that your genetics, that combination that will never exist ever again. And that just hold that for a second and hold that sacredness about you, own it, honor it, and then think about where you are you're not accepting that part of you.
Yeah.
You're ignoring and pushing past that part of you. And
And making yourself wrong.
yes,
Like making out,
yes.
sorry, I'm so bad
Yeah.
at interrupting,
No,
but
no,
making
no, no.
yourself wrong
Yeah,
for being who you are, that
yeah.
has got to stop. And as you're
Yeah.
talking, I'm reminded, like, I used to send to my work. I had a business, a few years ago and closed that down to go back to corporate. Whole other story. But back then, I used to teach mindset coaching, which is where those 7 anti-entrepreneurs that you were talking about before came from, because I wrote a book about the 7 ways that women in business screw with themselves, mindset wise. And one of the things that I used to say then was, like, when someone would be arguing with me in a one-on-one session of all those deep-seated fears, like the 3 big ones, like I'm not worthy, I don't belong, I'm not loved. That's the, root of all of the mindset shizzle that, turns up in different clothing, but, pretty much that's what it comes down to. And I'm like, you can argue all you want about your lack of worthiness, and I will argue right back and say, just by being here, you're a miracle. And that is the end of that.
Yeah.
I will never,
Yeah.
ever
Oh,
allow you to fight for your learned limitation, because and the other thing that I've started to say now is it's time to surrender to your magnificence.
yep.
Like, the magnificence of you in your truth, unmasked, untamed, unshamed. You are magnificent. You are a miracle.
Yeah.
You are here to do the most amazing things that people have never done before. And we have to stop pretending that we're anything but that. And
Yeah.
that triggers the fuck out of people way more than the fear of failure does. The fear of success, I reckon, is way important or more alive at the moment than the fear of failure.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I mean that I think most people listening would be able to relate to that. I think there's a
Mhm.
part of you that you um continue to feel trapped. It's really funny because I have a scholarship, and so I choose someone to mentor an entrepreneur for 12 months, and
Yes.
I've just had someone come on board for that, and she's a beautiful,
Exciting.
amazing human who's been through a lot and is going through a lot. So I'm really excited to lead her through that this next
Oh,
12
so
months. But
beautiful.
she does astrology and she does some other bits and pieces as well. And she sent me an email after we caught up the first time, and she said, I
Yeah.
think I must have said something to her that obviously triggered this, but she said, "Oh, I'd really like to, would you mind if I looked at your astro chart?" And I said, of course, yeah. And she said, because I
Yeah.
feel like there's a part of you that is like a little baby lion cub that still needs to come out to roar. And I was like, it kind of just
Yes.
stopped me in my tracks. So this is someone I'm helping, but what a beautiful gift that she can already see that like, even though
Hmm.
she's obviously trusting me to mentor her, that she can actually see
Yes.
there is still opportunity for me to be more wild in my expression.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I think that even forms part of that standing still and then coming back to that question, like, you will never
Yeah.
exist like this ever again. Hold that thought for more than just a couple of minutes and just
Mm.
let yourself be in reverence with that question and with your soul,
Mm.
and then go, okay, where what do I need to do now? Because very quickly, even you just asking that in this conversation, I'm going, oh shit, there's a few things that I need to
Yeah.
realign really bloody quickly,
Yeah.
because I
Hmm.
don't feel fully anchored in that. And I
Yeah.
feel good, I feel great, but it just gives you an opportunity to, again, deepen. And yeah, oh God, that's magical. And I'm always getting high off what you were saying from that too. So that's awesome. But one of the
Sometimes
things,
I'm like,
yeah,
shush.
one of the things that I
That's
really,
my manager part.
yeah,
Sorry.
but one of the things I love that you said is that you have found a projector friend who's got the same profile as you, right?
Mm.
Because projectors, and a lot of people don't know this, projectors are actually here to teach and guide others into rest and
Yes.
play. And so I love that you have found somebody who is obviously
Oh,
well
so
aware of their
special.
projectors, that because that's what you can learn from that side of things. And
Yeah.
also, in saying that, her too, she can learn from you how to work
Hmm.
through, without the manager, work through the
Yes.
all of the action, without the burnout. And
Yeah.
so I love that. So if you can find a projector, around you who's got the same profile, absolutely.
Oh,
I'd like latch on and be besties 100%
yeah.
because that
I've
is,
just,
you're going to mimic that behavior and it's going to be really helpful because that is ultimately that is what we're here to um
mm,
we're supposed to be leading by example, but most projectors are still deconditioning, so it's not as
yeah,
active. But
100%.
I
It's
love that
been,
for you.
it's been such a revelation. And I don't like, I have two daughters that are 12 months and 6 days apart. And this like individual blueprint and the UES version of you and all of this miraculous talk that we're talking about, like it's so funny as a parent. Like Abby was born, she was super duper lanky and had so much black hair that when I had my like late in pregnancy scan, the sonographer actually said, "Oh, it's hairy," and I was like, "What do you mean it's hairy? Like an alien?" But she had much hair. She had like a full mohawk and black, and like super lanky, and yeah, just like so chill and like just super calm. Like I remember the night she was born, my husband went to do the whole head wedding thing. And I was on my side and she was snuggled up in her little humidity crib, but it was like right next to my bed. And I just remember her just opening her eyes and just like looking at me. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, don't look to me for, I don't know how to have, like, I'm not, and I didn't actually want children. So I should probably preface that with, I have a tricky relationship with my mum and I was really blocked against having kids. So it took me a long time to fall pregnant, but I'm married to a man who is like a baby magnet, a baby and animal magnet, and there was no way that we weren't having children. Anyway, they have been the most beautiful gift to my life. But where I'm going with that is she was born, and then 12 months, 6 days later, I, for some reason, just thought that the next one, we didn't know which sex they were either way, gender wise, would if it was a girl, she'd just look like Abby, right? And I don't know why, because when you see other people's families that doesn't necessarily happen. And Cleo, from the moment that she came out of me, was like, I know what I want. You are not going to get in my way. Da, da, da. And now, knowing about human design, like Cleo's a manifester and very, very strong, like manifester, very clear. Abby's like this beautiful, soft hearted, like Manny Jen type of person. And I'm just like, what would the world be like if we understood, even from the time we came here, that the way that we perceive and the way that we act and the way that we feel the most nourished is different?
Yeah.
Because not only does this manager part monitor us, we're also monitoring everybody else and judging them through the same lens that our self-monitoring happens through. It's like, well, they should be doing this and they should be doing that. And the gift of having this new friend who's a projector with the same profile lines is like, she's worked for 3 hours today, so she's going to have a nap. And I'm like, where could I open this up for myself? Because I'm still doing the 5 days a week, 8 hours a day thing because that's the box that I've been in for so many years. And I'm like, what would be possible if we were just, and this is why I keep coming back to wild and finally fucking free. Like if we were free of all the conditioning and we were allowed from birth, and I know I'm talking like this is like utopian, but
Yeah.
you know, what magic would we be able to unfold without having to decondition all the shit that we were trying, all the boxes that we were trying to squish ourselves into, or that we were squished into. And don't get me started about the education system and like
Yeah, oh, yeah, of
there's
course.
so much more
Same.
I could say, but
Yeah.
but like what magic would we allow ourselves to experience if we just believed from the very beginning that the way that we were was perfect and correct?
Yes. Oh, so much yes. I have two cousins. They've got young kids, very young kids. One
Mm-hmm.
just turned one. The other one's 5 and 7. And
Yeah.
when especially with the 1 year old, when he was born as a gift, I wrote them I sent them an email with all of the human design details about their
Oh,
newborn. And so
so good.
he's a reflector, and one of
Oh,
the brother who's got the 5 year old, that he's got a reflector as
mm,
well. They're 1% of the population.
1%.
And these kids, they look like they're 70, 50, and 70 years old. They don't look like babies.
Because they are.
But they are. So they're like that. They're on those. reflectors are like Einstein level. And so I wanted them to know how special their kid was. And they love that, even
Yeah.
though they, I'm definitely the woo-woo one of the family. So I wasn't
Me
sure how they
too.
were going to receive it, but I asked them, would you like this information? Because I don't think you understand. This is a really special kid. And it wasn't because I was, like, your child's beautiful, it's a miracle. No, it's actually like factually, this you need to really understand what you've got on your hands here, because if
Mm.
you cultivate it properly
Yeah.
and you understand
Oh.
what your child needs at such a deeper level, it's going to be a game changer. And so both of them, now that they understand that, they're just fully surrendered to how their children are. And the one who's 5, he's a reflector as well. And so he's just started school, and the teacher is getting him to sign in, and he's like, I don't need to sign in, I signed in yesterday. And so he's like, oh, lady, no, but it's not because
I'm
he's,
not here to live in your system.
yeah, it's not because he's trying to be a brat, but he's like, this is a complete and total waste of time. What are you doing?
Mm,
And so
mm.
that's going to be challenging to navigate, because he's at a Catholic school, and, all of that. But regardless, if
Yes, yes,
if we
yes.
understood that right from the beginning and gave ourselves permission to let these cherubs be whoever they're supposed to be, I mean,
Yeah.
such a miracle. But that's what
Like,
we're doing
let's
for ourselves now as adults. And it's
exactly.
so much harder to undo. It is,
Yeah.
it is, it is the gift to be seen is the most powerful thing that you can do for yourself and for others. And I love that for your
Yeah,
programs.
absolutely.
Is there, if there's like one thing you most want to share with the audience today around something that they can do initially to just start down that path, what would you recommend? Or is there a program right now that's active that you're offering that you
Mm.
want to share about this?
Yeah. I feel like I feel like for me, the biggest thing that switched me on to the things that we're talking about is that because when we're trying to decondition and unlearn the rules and come home to ourselves, and I would say also, like, I just turned 50. I feel like perimenopause is a very natural questioning. Everything comes up to be kind of reviewed. The veil of accommodation that estrogen gives us starts to, and our give a fuck factor leaves the building, but also the like take no shit, amps up. Like I feel like, and I feel like that is as it should be, because I do very much feel like there's a lot of conditioning with younger girls and going through, our 20s, and like we are told that to be acceptable and palatable, we have to be a particular way, right? And then this wise woman energy starts coming in, and you're like, whoa, okay. I feel like for me, one of the things that really helped me was I was feeling really, really isolated in business because I I knew a lot of the things that I wanted to do, but because I was paradigm shifting, I felt quite, yeah, like just vulnerable to be speaking out about it, even though I'm by nature rebel, have been always. And one of the things that really helped me was I worked with a coach last year who introduced me to the concept of this like soul of your business, right? Like the fact that this legacy work, my full belief, and I really love actually your kind of way of looking at this through the karmic, like, yeah, the all the work that you do. Like I feel like before we come here, we're not in a skin suit, we're somewhere in the stars, and we go through this big wardrobe of like, what legacy would I like to, step into in this lifetime? And we, choose the one, we put the skin suit on, come down, but we also forget all of that. And we get the family and the challenges and the opportunities and whatever to unveil that, and the golden thread starts to pull us forward. But it was when I actually understood that my legacy work, my message has a soul and a consciousness as well. So there's actually no need to feel isolated and exposed because I'm actually co-creating. So I feel like my business, and as I'm speaking, I'm like, yes. And how long since you checked in on all of these energies? A very long time. That's why you're not feeling grounded. But I feel like we are plaiting together this, when we talked before, like our parts are wanting to protect, the inner child any sort of needs that were unmet there. But there's this plat of like the inner child, this wise woman, like the Maryanne Viking, authentic self, but our soul of our business as well. And there's this beautiful threading that happens. And it was that really, I don't know, there was some peace that I really got from that. And because I also do many different forms of healing and energetic and mindset work, I just recorded a meditation that is actually going on a journey and meeting all of these parts and, yeah, checking in with the soul of the business. And now the soul of my business has shown me, and because I'm visual, it is definitely a visual landscape. It's not for everybody, but I have this entire business ecosystem that I, literally can go and visit. And then there's the soul of my business, and there's this beautiful stream and all of these gorgeous trees. And sometimes I go in a meditation there and I'm like, wow, where did that come from? And it's like the last thing that was added was this massive big oak tree when I opened my membership. And I was like, okay, soul of my business, tell me more about this. And they're like, do you see how much more shelter and space to welcome community there is underneath? And I'm like, okay, I get it. And so that is actually available, that meditation, on my website. And so do you want me to say the URL, or we could put it in the show notes, whatever.
I'll put it in the
Um,
link with your
yeah, perfect.
with the episode
Yeah. So
information.
that's called the Golden Threads meditation. And then the scene program that you've actually spoken about, that you went through, we did that live back in November, but it's actually self-study at the moment. And so there's been more than 500 people through it now. So there's 200 live and 500 like total. And, every day there was something magical about that circle. And I feel like if you're listening and you're like, I haven't let my full self out to play, seen it's a $33 offer for 11 days. It's more than like 12 hours of, I would highly recommend that you don't try and do it over 11 days. Most people got very overwhelmed, apart from people like you that were like, I am diving in. But yeah, that's on my website as well. So I could give you that. But if you want to see what happens when you surrender to your magnificence and bring your full self out to play, watch the opening call, because you will actually watch me doing exactly that. And
Yeah.
there was something quite magical in that space. And every day, still now, I still get people saying, oh my God, I've just had this huge understanding of where I'm out of alignment, or where I'm not revealing my heart or sharing my why. So if anything that we're talking about is like sparking something, start with seeing, like, it's super, accessible. I price it that way because I'm like, we need as many of us paradigm shifters
Yeah,
woken up and shining our light as we possibly can, because the world is
definitely.
in a pretty wildly out of balance situation right now. Mm.
Absolutely it is. And I highly recommend it. It is my best advice is to give yourself at least 2 weeks to work through it with like
Definitely.
complete and total dedication. It's too hard to weave it into other things that you're doing. So dedicate days to do that, even if it means extending it out. But
Mhm.
also um the big part is the accountability part of doing the work afterwards. That's where you're
Yes.
going, because we all can fall into let's do another course and let's do another course and let's do another course, but holding yourself accountable to the implementation is
Yes.
the game changer. That is where you really start to embody and anchor, because you get the understanding,
Mhm.
but you've got to move from the understanding into
Yes.
integration. And
100%.
you've got to give yourself grace to do that too. And that may take a few more weeks, and that's fine. But you just got to keep your own feet, and you've got to take responsibility for
Mm.
that, your own feet to the fire. And
Yeah,
it is
100%.
worth it. It is so
Actually,
worth it, because I couldn't have interviewed like I did with you had I not done that.
yeah.
I attracted a partner in after doing this work, and I let
Oh,
myself
really?
be seen on the website. Yeah, I didn't tell you that, but he came in after that, and it's not a coincidence. I've been waiting a
No,
really
of
long
course
time.
it's not.
I can't even
No.
tell you a long time, but that it happened sort
Mm.
of, it happened in like consecutive order. I gave myself permission to be seen, and one of the things he loves about me is that I'm so confident in his mind. He sees me as being really confident, but it's only because I am, because I feel safe there. I am in my true expression. But had I
Yes.
not done any of
Yes.
that work and challenged myself to actually put myself out there, and I was already out there, I was running a business, I was talking to people, I
Yes.
did have a website with, lovely imagery and good, I use that in inverted commas, good content,
Yeah.
but it wasn't the depth. Do you know what I mean? And so
And it
for,
wasn't showing, sorry, it wasn't
it wasn't
showing
showing
your
my
full
soul.
energy.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
where the magic is.
totally.
Because, and I think one of the things that we haven't really voiced, but just quickly, like when we are not sharing the fullness of ourselves, that's when we want to turn up as this, and I always talk in colors and textures because my neurosparkly brain, when I meet someone, I always have an anchor of something like a color or texture or something. And one of those stories that I tell is I was working with a client and she is this just delicious, deep, like there's never any sort of shallow, like what's that quote? Like I'm afraid of the shallows. I only swim at the depths, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And in my mind, in my, wild way of looking at things, she's all like this gorgeous, like magenta, velvety, like you want to like marinate in this depth, right? And then I would get on, or I got onto her website after because I never ever look at people's websites before I meet them because I'm like,
yeah,
nah, I want to actually meet who you are. And I got onto her website and I'm like, vanilla, vanilla, vanilla. Like,
yeah,
I feel like it's like everyone else's website. And I'm like, this is why I have to do this work because
yeah,
it's not enough for me to just write the copy because as you said if you're out of resonance, and I'm so glad you brought love into this because this is truly at the heart of it, the work of expanding your capacity to receive
yeah,
being seen.
yeah,
And that is the key. Receive it. And you
yeah.
have to feel safe in yourself. And it's building that self trust and putting those parts in the beanbag and also doing the because a key thing that I teach and seen as well is that self-devotion. Like this work does not happen when we are out of resources. Like we have to
Yes.
be devoted to our own nourishment as a human to be able to have the grounding, to then uncover the voice and visibility stuff, to then share our work with the world. And that feels like a lot. And it is, let's be
Yeah.
honest. Actually, as you're talking, I'm thinking maybe I should run a live scene and make it 11 weeks instead of 11 days and actually include accountability. Like you've just given me an idea.
Well,
Mm,
I highly recommend. The
yeah.
accountability part is, I think, the part
Yes.
that, because I'm good at doing the accountability part, but I think a lot of people, the wheels start to fall off when they're back on
Yeah.
their own. So I think
100%.
that would be an amazing offer.
Mm,
I feel like that is also something that a lot of people with their facilitation, that there's no part of that there. And so
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be really beneficial. I mean, like I said, I
Yeah.
was like really dedicated to getting it done because I
Yes.
knew that it was holding me back from a lot of different things, including receiving, love in the way that I most wanted it. And
Yeah.
I did the
Yeah.
work and boom, everything just activated. And I will be internally grateful for
Makes me
that. But
very
that that visibility aspect is, especially for the change makers who are listening, is such a big thing. Just when you think, and this is coming back full circle now to the beginning part of the conversation, just when you think you're already out there, there is more to discover. And so I am now definitely, after this conversation, going to sit with that question about the genetic disposition, but I'm also going to go back through
yeah.
seeing again. And I want to take
Yeah.
myself back through because I know there is definitely some deepening there. And that investment is worth it over and over and over again. That there should probably be 3 or 4 figures after the 33
Yeah. I
because
do
of,
honestly think
yeah,
that.
absolutely. The
But
value is definitely
it's
there.
more,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
It's more important to me. I'm like, sorry. You go.
no, I know why. I know what your motivation is behind that because you want impact. You're not, your focus isn't, and that's why you're a change maker. Your focus isn't on the revenue. Your focus is on impact and legacy. Same as me, same as all of
Exactly.
the change makers that I talk to. But
Exactly.
but this
Exactly.
is why people need to, because it's not always going to be this way. When the scales eventually tip and more people are, on board, well, that may change. Those prices may change. They may change next month. Who knows? But for right now, it is worth it. And I think even just me explaining how it's impacted me, it is worth the exploration. Even just that one
Yeah.
question that came through in the podcast today. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I I know you and I could talk for hours and hours and hours and hours,
We
but I
really
have
could.
loved your perspective on transformation, on storytelling, on why there is what is driving the blocks to the visibility side of things as well, and how
Hmm.
to lean into the somatic side. And I'd probably like to explore that more with you. Maybe we'll have another conversation
Yeah.
around that
Yeah.
specifically, because in your
Hmm.
program, you go through EFT, and you have a whole other program related to somatic. So if you're open, I'd love to have a separate
Yeah.
conversation just on
Yeah, of
that.
course.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
because
yes. I mean,
that comes in, that they work together for transformation, and you get that in the scene program, but that is
yeah.
that nervous system work is how you
Mhm.
can better anchor into the self-trust for bravery
Yes.
and courage to be your wild, free self.
100%. And I think I've actually been reflecting because the membership that I have called, which is called Mad Hatters Home, because I feel like I, work with the Mad Hatters of the rebels, the revolutionaries, out of the box people like you and I. I've folded that program that you're talking about, Soothe, because I don't actually ever run that as a separate program, but to me, it's like I call it a self-care sanctuary for entrepreneurs because when we do have activated parts, if we don't understand how to state shift, we can get stuck in that conditioned churning, burning, striving, driving, but not getting anywhere and actually taking ourselves off course more and more and more. And every 1%, changes your trajectory completely.
Yeah.
But because my background just for my own healing journey through being the survivor of lots of things in childhood, has really taken me down the track of learning the somatic, like the breath work, yoga, traditional Chinese medicine, acupressure. So there's literally like 99 different, resources in there for somatic release and grounding, because it's
Yeah.
like when you are not resourced, you're not actually acting from your full self. Exactly like you said, like you're acting
Yeah.
from that part that's like, time is short, or that
Totally.
graspy energy, and we need to be able to manage ourselves out of it. We need to
A
be able to
hundred
pattern
percent.
interrupt
Yeah.
and stop doing that, because when we don't have those skills, our inevitable success is just delayed. So yeah.
And it can be delayed
Mm.
if you don't take a hold of it. It can be delayed for months,
Well, a
years even,
lifetime,
or a
you know
lifetime. Absolutely. Absolutely. You can veer
like,
right off course very, very quickly. And
yeah.
that's a really great reminder. So yeah, let's make a time
Mhm.
to have that chat as well,
Yes,
because that that
let's.
is that there is
Love
so
that.
much of that I'd really like to have you talk about, and the wisdom that you have around all of the different tools, and how what tools to use when you're feeling,
Mm.
you know, feeling A, feeling B, feeling C.
Yes.
And also I've got some questions around EFT as well. So I'll hold all of that.
Yeah, yeah.
We can go through that
Yeah, go for
again.
it. That
It'd be
I would love
awesome.
to. I'd love to. I
Yeah.
think as you're talking, the thing that keeps coming to my mind is, you paradigm shifters, we are very, very good at like reasoning and thinking and all of those things. That's more conditioning. Actually, what we're here to do is create new pathways and innovate. So when we're thinking and trying to process in our brains, which only can see what we expect to see, that's the job of the brain, we are missing the magic. And so somatic tools just open us up to the fullness of who we are and the fullness of all of the unseen supports that are actually there holding our feet, like all of, the ancestors, the benevolent, spirit guides, all of the team and the soul of our business and the younger parts of us and the wise woman, all there holding our feet. And
Yeah.
we in our brains cannot see or feel any of it. It's
Yeah.
like, stop
Yeah.
it. We need to stop thinking that this is the only. Anyway, I will not continue
100%.
to chat.
Yeah, no, no, no. I will. I'll organize another time with you because that is an
Yeah.
important conversation and one I haven't had the opportunity to talk about yet, especially when it comes
Mhm.
to visibility and when it comes
Mm.
to, the full embodiment of the wildness within. I
Yes.
think that's going to be a great conversation.
Yes.
I adore you, and I'm so grateful that you've joined me on the show. I thank you so much for everything that you've shared today and for your all of your openness and your whole heart being present. I could feel it through the whole conversation. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I love the opportunity to share because I really, really hope that the light of this conversation and the combination of your soul and my soul helps to, I just feel like there's a whole heap of people out there and it's just like, see this light and this light and this light. Like we need all of us,
Yeah.
come to the party, rise.
Yeah. Yeah. The Mad
Yeah.
Hatter's party. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. The secret garden of the mad, wacky people that are here to actually change the world.
Yeah. Just those
Thank you so
people.
much. Yeah,
Yeah.
just them.
All right, Kylie,
Thank
I'll speak to you again
you so
soon.
much. Much love. Thank you. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
darling. Bye.